On this video, I am picking up in chapter 20 of the book of Job. We're looking through the book, doing a inductive grammatical analysis, pretty much verse by verse and word by word as much as possible through the book of Job and with commentary. And we worked our way up to chapter 20. Zophar now gives his second speech. It is one of increasing attack on the wicked, with a growing insinuation that Job is the one referred to. He sees the triumph of the wicked as short-lived, followed by final and ultimate doom. The riches he has taken in will soon be vomited up again. This is his argument. His temporary prosperity will soon depart, and calamity will swallow him. Thus, the momentary triumph of the wicked is followed by a calamitous fall. So we begin then in that chapter. Vaya'an Zophar hana amati vayomar. That is, Zophar answered the Nahamatite and said. Vaya'an is from the root ana, to answer. It's a cow imperfect third masculine singular from ana with a vav conversive. So Zophar answered and said, Lachain se'ifai yeshivuni. That is, therefore, my thoughts return or give answer to me, even by reason of my agitation. Uva avur hushi vi. On account of my agitation, or on account of the agitation which is in me. So he is saying here, my thoughts are returning an answer to me on account of the agitation that I'm feeling concerning Job, what you have been saying. So as we look at that verse, he's going to now become extremely negative. Zophar becomes quite agitated by Job's declarations of his innocence. He no longer contains himself and must give an answer to Job, is his point here. So in verse 3, Musar kelimatai eshma. I have heard the reproof which puts me to shame, or which I am put to shame. I have heard. But out of my understanding, veruach mivinatai ya'aneni. But from my understanding, or out of my understanding, my spirit answers me. So he's going to answer Job by his spirit or by his understanding. Ya'aneni is from ana, to answer. It's a cow imperfect third masculine singular from ana. And in verse 3, eshma is a cow imperfect first common singular from shama. So I have heard the reproof which puts me to shame. I have heard. And from my spirit, or out of my understanding, My spirit is going to give answer. Notice he has not appreciated Job's refusal to listen to them, or his implication that they are sinners. He tries to remain calm in spite of Job's reproaches, and tells Job that he will now speak with a true spirit of understanding and wisdom. And so he continues in verses 4 and 5. Hazot yadata mini ad. Indeed, this have you not known, or did you not know this from old? Mini sim Adam ale aretz. Since the time, or from the time that man was placed upon the earth, or the placement of man upon the earth, have you not known what we are reasoning with you, Job? Yadati again is your cow perfect first or second person masculine singular from yada. And then verse 5, that the triumphing of the wicked, ki rinat rishaim mikarov, that the triumphing of the wicked is near. In other words, it's short, near to come to an end. And Vesimchat Chanev, and the joy of the godless ones, Ade Raga, that is, are only unto a moment, or but for a moment. So he's reasoning here, don't you know, Zophar asks, that the triumph of the wicked is short-lived, and his joy is but momentary, will only be for a moment, is a momentary joy. So he continues then in verses 6 and 7. Im ya'aleh lashamayim siho, though his excellency will climb up, or will ascend to heaven, Berosho la'ab yagia, and his head to the clouds will reach, though his head will reach to the clouds. Ya'aleh is from the root Allah, to ascend, the cow imperfect third masculine singular from Allah, and his head to the cloud, though it reach. Yagia is from Naga, the Hifil imperfect third masculine singular from Naga. It's a pay noon verb, so the noon has assimilated into the gimel. Yangia has become Yagia with the doubling of the gimel. And the AI vowel pattern gives it away as a Hifil imperfect. So then verse 7, he continues, yet he will perish forever, like his own dung. Kegalo lenetzach yoved, as his dung, forever he will perish. Yoved is a cow imperfect, third masculine singular from avad. And then they that have seen him shall say, where is he? Ru'av yomeru ayo. Notice Ru'av is from the root Ra'av, a lamed hey root. And here we have a participle, a cow participle, masculine plural, followed by the pronominal suffix, third masculine singular, in the vav here. And so they who see him and who have seen him say, Yomeru, from Amar, a cow imperfect third masculine plural, ayehu, that is, where is he? So his point here is, even though he mount up to the heavens, though the loftiness and eminence of the wicked mount up to the heavens, he shall eventually perish like his own dung, and people will wonder what has happened to him. This is Zophar's point of argument. And so in verse 8, then, he continues to drive home this very hurtful reply to Job. Kahalom ya'uf velo yemsa'uhu. He shall, as a dream, he shall fly away and shall not be found. Or literally, they shall not find him. So as a dream, ya'of, from off, to fly, a cow imperfect, third masculine singular. As a dream comes and it's gone soon. He will fly away, and they shall not find him. Velo yemsa'uhu, from matzah, it's a cow imperfect, third masculine plural, from matzah, followed by hu, the pronominal suffix, third masculine singular. And indeed, he shall be chased away like or as a vision of the night. Vayudad hezyon lila. He shall be chased away. From nadad, here we have a puel imperfect, third masculine singular, preceded by the vav hafik, or the vav conversive, as he shall be chased away as the vision of the night, as yon lila. So what he's saying here is, as a dream which leaves one when one awakes, so shall the wicked eventually fly away and be no more, is Zophar's point. So then verse 9, the eye which saw him will see him no more. Notice ayin shezafatu velo tosif. The eye which saw him will not see him anymore. From Yasaf here, it would have been a pay vav verb, will cause to see him no more. Ifil imperfect, third feminine singular, from Yasaf. And neither shall his place any more behold him. Velo od tashuranu makomo. That is, his place shall no longer behold him or be able to see him. Those who seek the godless will be unable to find them. That's what Zophar is saying. And so he continues his argument. Banav yeratsu dalim. His children shall appease the poor. Vayadav tashevna oto. And his hands shall restore his wealth, or shall return or restore his wealth. In this particular verse, the children of the wicked will be forced to seek favor from the poor whom their father had robbed. The wicked man then will also lose and have to thereby restore or return what he took in his wickedness. So again, notice the accusations that Zophar is applying to Job. And so in verse 11, Atzamotav mala'u alumav. His bones are full of his youth. The imo al afar tishkab. But in spite of that, he will lie down with him in dust, or upon the dust. So his bones, atzmotav, are full, mala'ah, of his youth. Mala'ah is a cow perfect, third common plural from malah, to be full. And with it shall lie down, and with him, that is his youth, shall lie down upon the dust. Tishkav is a cow imperfect, third feminine singular from shachav. And the thought here is the verse is referring to a godless man who dies in the prime of life. Though youthful vigor filled his bones, it will be buried with him in the dust, is the thought of the text. At the height of his power, the wicked will be cut off in the midst of his days. So then he continues in verses 12 to 14. Though wickedness should be sweet in his mouth, im tamtik befiv ra'ah. The wickedness shall be caused to be sweet in his mouth. Matak is to be sweet. This is a hifil imperfect, third feminine singular from the root matak, to be sweet. It's an AI vowel pattern. Though he hide it under his tongue. Yachidena tachat leshuno. Though he cause it to be hidden under his tongue. This is from kahad, to hide. It's a cow in a hifil imperfect, third masculine singular from kahad, followed by a third feminine pronominal suffix in the ah. And so in verse 11, the point seems to be the verse refers to a godless man who dies in the prime of life, where his bones are full of youth. And we saw that. So now we're coming to verse 12. And let me read on through verse 14 to get the flow of thought here. Yachmo alecha velo ya'azvena. Though he should spare it and will not let it go, but keep it, vayim na enna betochiko, but keep it in the midst of his mouth. Here we have, though he spare it, hamal, cow imperfect, third masculine singular from hamal, to spare. Though he spare concerning it, and it will not let it go, and will not let it go. He will not let it go. Ya'azvenna, from azav, to abandon or forsake it. Cow imperfect, third masculine singular with the ah here. Pronominal suffix, third feminine singular. Then, even though that's the case, yet his food and his bowels is turned. Lachmo v'me'av nefag. Yet his food, his bread in his mouth is turned, or in his bowels, is turned. Nefak is from hafak. It's a nifal perfect, third masculine singular from hafak. It is the gall of apes within him. Merorat petanim bikirbo. Though his food in his mouth is turned, the gall of asp is within him. And the thought here, going back to verse 12 through 14, seems to be this: though wickedness is sweet to the palate of the wicked, verse 12, and though he keeps it in his mouth, slowly chewing it to enjoy its flavor to the fullest, verse 13, it turns to bitter poison within him when he swallows it. That wicked morsel, which was sweet to the taste, turns sour in the stomach. And that is true when you see wickedness, but it's a wrong application that's being made here to Job. So then we move on to verse 15 as the text continues. Hayil bala vaya ki enu. Notice he has swallowed down, or the riches he has swallowed, and shall vomit them up, shall cause them to be, or shall vomit them up. So he swallowed the riches and will vomit them up, and God shall cast them out of his belly. Mibetno Yarishenu El. So God, Yorishenu El. God will cast them out of his belly. So in verse 15, his wealth, or the wealth of the wicked, will not stay with him. He will vomit up the riches which he has amassed, is what Zophar is saying. So in verse 16, he will suck the poison of asp. Rosh petanim yinak. The poison of asp he will suck. Yinak is from the root yanak, to suck. Here it's the cow imperfect third masculine singular. By the way, there's two types of pei yod verbs. There's the pei yod verb that was always in the imperfect, ye not, would become, it was always a pei yod, whereas, and that's why it's ye not, because the yod was always there in the imperfect, where the pei vav verb, like vashav, becomes yeshav in an imperfect, because the vav elides or drops out. So here we have a historically pei yod form. So in verse 16, he will not be able to live with his wealth. A poisonous serpent will bite him, and he will absorb its venom and die, is Zophar's point. So in verse 17, he shall not look upon the rivers. Al yireh v'felagot. That is, he shall not look upon the rivers and the flowing streams of honey and curd. Na'arei nahale davash v'chem'ah. So the rivers or streams that are flowing of honey and curd. In other words, what seems to be said here is his prosperity will cease, and he will not have the enjoyment of butter and honey. Such enjoyment will be cut from his presence. And so in verse 18, he continues, Mashiv Yaga velo yivla. So that which he has labored for shall he give back. In other words, he will return that which he has labored for, and shall not swallow it down. Below Yivlah. Yivlah is the cow imperfect, third masculine singular from Bala, to swallow. And according to the substance that he has gotten, he shall not rejoice. Kechel temurato velo ya'alos. That is, he's not going to be able to rejoice according to the substance that he has gotten. Ya'alos is from alas, to rejoice. It's the cow imperfect, third masculine singular, to rejoice. So the thought here is his illegal wealth will be taken away to make restitution. And the joy, he will not experience the satisfaction then of having great wealth, but it will rather be a disappointment to him. This is Zophar's point, it seems. So in 19, we continue. It reads, for he has oppressed and forsaken the poor. Kiritzatz azav dalim, for he has oppressed. Ratzatz is the PL perfect, third masculine singular from ratzatz, to oppress. And he has forsaken, azab meaning to forsake, cow perfect, third masculine singular, dalim, that is, he has forsaken the poor, and he's violently taken away a house, but he shall not build it up. Bayit gazal below yivnehu, a house he has stolen or taken away, but he shall not build it up, shall not build it. Notice here, Gazal is just your cow perfect, third masculine singular from Gazal. And Yivnehu is from Bana, a cow imperfect, third masculine singular, a lamed hay verb. And the hay is dropped out, and the hu is your pronominal suffix, third masculine singular. So as we look at verse 19, the thought is he will be judged, for he has oppressed the poor instead of coming to their aid. He extends his cruelty so far as to take away their homes, leaving them with no shelter. As a punishment, though, he will not inhabit the house he has stolen or enjoy his stolen possession. This is Zophar's argument against the wicked, and implying that Job must be wicked. We see a similar kind of application in Isaiah 5, 8, and 9, and Micah 2, 2, and 3. And so in verse 20, we continue, Ki lo yada shalev bebitno. That is, because he did not know quietness in his midst. Yada again is just your cow perfect, third masculine singular, to know. And in his greed, he suffered nothing to escape. V'chamudo, in his greed, lo yemale. In his greed, it did not escape. Malade is the PL imperfect, third masculine singular from malad, with a shavah pathak, doubling of the middle radical, indicative of a PL stem. So the thought seems to be, because his greed could not be quieted and was insatiable, he will not escape with any of his wealth. In other words, none of it shall, or he will not escape, even though he's been so greedy and has all of this, he will not escape losing everything. So then in verse 21, Ein sarid le'ochlo. There is nothing left which he did not devour. There is nothing sharid left to devour, that he for him to devour. And then al kain lo yahil tuvo. Because of this, therefore, his prosperity shall not endure. His prosperity shall not last. And what he's saying here, because his greed, his prosperity was only short-lived, will not endure because of his greedy and wicked eye. Greediness is followed by loss, is Zophar's argument. So in verse 22 then, Bim lo'od sifko yetze lo. In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits, and the hand of every one that is in misery shall come upon him. Kol yad amel tevo enu. Tevo enu is the cow imperfect third feminine singular from bo, followed by the pronominal suffix in the u here. It would have been tevo en hu, becoming tevo enu, where the hey of the hu, by reverse assimilation, has gone back into the nu. And so in 22, the end has come at the height of his so-called prosperity. The power which he has oppressed the poor now comes back upon him with all of its force. He is stripped of all his possessions, just as he had previously stripped others of their possessions, is Zophar's argument. So in 23, Yahai nemale vitno. It shall be for the filling of his belly. Yishalach bo charon apo. That is, he shall send forth in him the fierceness of his wrath upon him, and he shall cause it to rain upon him into his flesh. Vayamter alemo vil humo. So it shall be for filling. The malay is a PL infinitive construct from the root to fill. It shall be for filling of his belly, and it shall cast upon him the fierceness of his wrath. Speaking, I believe, of God's judgment, and shall cause it to rain upon his intestines or upon his flesh. Bilhumo. So what Zophar is saying here is simply this in verses 22 and 23. The end has come at the height of his prosperity. The power with which he expressed the poor now comes back upon him with full force. He is stripped of all of his possessions, just as he has previously stripped others. And God will rain down wrath. At the height of his prosperity, when the belly of the rich man is full, God will send his wrath in abundance and cause it to rain upon the wicked, coming into his very flesh with its destruction. seems to be the thought of Zophar here. And so in verse 24, if he flee from the iron weapon, then the bow of brass shall strike him through. Yivrach min neshek barzel. Yivrach is the cow imperfect third masculine singular from barach, to flee. Then the bow of brass, keshet nechusha, shall strike him through. Tach lefehu. Here we have Yivrach, cow imperfect third masculine singular from barach, to flee. So if he flee from the iron weapon, then the bow of brass will strike him from tach lefahu, from halaf, to strike, a cow imperfect third feminine singular, followed by hu, the pronominal suffix third masculine singular. So in 24, the Hebrew pictures the wicked fleeing from one weapon as another comes to attack him. While fleeing from the iron weapon or sword, the bow will strike him down. A passage that one could compare would be Amos chapter 5, verse 19. And then in verse 25, he draws it forth, shalaf v'yetzeh megeva. He draws it forth, and it comes out of his, or from his belly. Indeed, varak mim rato. That is, the glittering point comes out of his belly, or out of his gall, and tears are upon him. Ya alok, they come upon him, alav amim. That is, tears come upon him. And shalaf is the cow imperfect third masculine singular from shalaf, to draw forth. And yetzeh is the cow imperfect third masculine singular from yatsa, a former pei vav verb, where the vav has elided and we have compensatory lengthening in the tseri. So he draws it forth, and it comes out of his belly, and the glittering point comes out of his gall, and tears are upon him, or come upon him. Yahalok, from halak, the cow imperfect third masculine singular, to come upon. So in 25, the stricken man draws the tip of the arrow out from his insides as the tears of death flows in, is what he is picturing here, what Zophar is picturing. And then in 26, all darkness is laid upon his treasures. Kol hoshek tamun litz funav. That is, all darkness is hidden or laid to his treasures. And te'achalehu eish lo nufach. A fire is blown, a fire not blown, we should say, of man, by man, shall consume him. So a fire shall consume him. Notice here, achalehu is your PL imperfect third feminine singular, followed by hu, the pronominal suffix third masculine singular. So a fire shall consume him, and shall a fire that is blown, that is not blown, lo nufa, that is, has not been blown. Here we have a puel, stem from nafach, to blow, a fire that has not been blown shall consume him. It shall go ill with him, and that is left in his tent. So Yerah Sarid Be'aholo. So the thought of 26 is his treasures will be lost forever, as what he has acquired then will be removed. And a raging fire, that is lightning sent by God, will consume him, and all that is left of him will be destroyed, is Zophar's point or analogy he's making here. And so in 27, the heavens shall reveal his iniquity. Notice Yegalu Shamayim Avono. The heavens shall reveal his iniquity. This is from Gala, a Lamed Hey verb. It's a PO imperfect, third masculine plural from Gala. The heavens shall reveal his iniquity. The earth shall rise up against him. But Eretz mit komama lo. The earth shall rise up. Here we have a hit polal participle, and it is the earth rises up, third singular, against him, and the root is kum. So what we're told here in 27, all of God's creation is in enmity with the wicked man. Both heaven and earth proclaim his guilt, even though he tries to hide it. And all of this is being, can I say, applied to Job by Zophar, an innocent man. So then in 28, it reads, Yagel Yevul Beito, the increase of his house shall go away, or shall depart. His goods shall flow away in the day of wrath. Nigarot bayom apo. So his goods shall depart or flow away in the day of wrath. And so his wealth received by oppressing the poor, that is the wicked man, will go as quickly as he got it. His goods will be swept away by a raging flood at the time of God's wrath against him. And so finally in verse 29, he concludes, or the chapter concludes, by describing the portion of the wicked that he's been describing. Zechelik Adam Rasha Me Elohim. This is the portion of the wicked man from God. In other words, he's assuming Job is a wicked man, even though we know that Job is innocent. And so in the latter part of 20, V'nachalat imro me'el, and the heritage or the inheritance that has been appointed him by God, or the inheritance that is appointed him by God. And so when we come to the conclusion here, the wrath basically is poured out on the wicked. It does not come by chance, is Zophar's argument. God has determined that the wicked shall be punished. This is his portion or inheritance from God for his wickedness. And so what we find in this chapter is an ongoing accusation against Job that we know from the early part of Job is an innocent man. But Zophar is following a traditional theology in which he is believing that one does not suffer unless he's done something wrong. And you know, this says something even to us today. A lot of times you hear of prosperity preaching. That is, if you have enough faith and you follow God, that no bad thing should happen to you. You should have, you know, perfect health and everything should be great. And so, if you don't have that, it's because you don't have proper faith. Well, I think a chapter like this could be applied against that type of teaching, that type of theology. So this is a very sort of a dark chapter of criticism of Job that Zophar is making. And when we come to the next chapter, Job will give his reply to Zophar, and that will be in chapter 21. What we learn from this is it's easy to accuse people of things in a wrong way, especially if they're going through suffering or sickness or things. People can say, well, you just didn't have enough faith or you didn't trust God enough. So I think this, by way of application, could be applied to that type of wrong teaching, health, wealth type of preaching. So this is a very, like I say, a critical chapter of Job, which is not true at all. And God will rebuke Zophar and Bildad and Zophar, or Bildad and Eliphaz, at the end of the book of Job.